You remember what a Friday night in the fall used to feel like? The whole town shutting down and driving to the same place. The lights you could see from across the dark. You'd hear the band before you ever got there. And that air, cold for the first time all year. Cut grass, popcorn, somebody's coffee up in the stands. That doesn't happen much anymore. The downtowns are dark now. The drive-ins are gone. The car hops, the burger on a tray hung in your window. Whole towns don't turn out for anything now. But you remember it, every bit of it. And so do I. I'm Henry. Welcome to sweet old America. With this channel, me and my friends are taking you back to the golden days of America. In every video, we rediscover and remember the forgotten version of those golden days. Today we are going back to West Texas, Odessa, the 1960s, back when the oil never slept, the pump jacks nodding day and night out past the edge of town. When you could watch a storm come in for an hour across the flat. When a hometown boy named Roy Orbison was on the radio. And when the whole town lived for Friday night, under the lights in the cold. I make these for the people who remember. If that's you, stay a while. And when we're through, tell me down below, what was your Friday night? The team you drove out to see, the song on the radio, the place you and your friends always ended up. Maybe your town's the one we go to next. All right, get comfortable. The lights are already on out there in the dark. Come on, we don't want to miss it. The first thing you smell is the gas. Not gas like the stove, the other kind. That sharp sulfur edge that rides in on the wind off the oil patch, faint at this hour, mixed down into the cool before dawn. You've smelled it your whole life. The old-timers out on the lease call it the smell of money, and they're not all the way joking when they say it. It's the smell of this town. It's down in the curtains and the truck seats and the back of your own throat. And most days you don't even know it's there. But early like this, before anybody's stirring, with the window cracked an inch and the air still cold off the flat, there it is, the first thing, before you've even opened your eyes. You lie there a minute in the gray. Outside, the wind is doing what the wind does out here, which is to say, it never quits. It comes 1,000 miles across the flat with not one thing in its way. No hill, no tree worth the name, no rise nor fall to the land at all. And it leans its whole weight on the house and finds every gap and hums down low in the screen. And under it, steady, the other sound. Far off, out past the last street, a pump jack working. That slow iron creak and groan, the walking beam riding up and over, the same as it went all night long, the same as it'll go all day. There's 100 of them out there in the dark, nodding away to themselves, pulling the oil up out of the deep of the earth, while the whole town sleeps on top of it. Your daddy's out there with them somewhere, has been since before 5. He goes out in the dark the way he goes out every morning the Lord sends, the thermos filled, the old truck coughing itself to life in the drive and pulling off down the street while you're still down deep in your sleep. You didn't hear him go, you never do, but you know the shape of his morning the way you know your own hand, the coffee on the stove, the soft moving around so as not to wake the house, the screen door eased shut behind him so it won't slap. His cup is already washed and turned upside down in the rack by the time you come down. It is always already washed. You roll out, and the floor is cold under your bare feet, and the whole little house is cold. Your daddy doesn't believe in lighting the heater for a house full of sleepers. And you go down the short hall toward the one warm room. The kitchen smells like coffee and bacon grease and the biscuits Mama's got going in the oven, and the warmth of it reaches out into the hall to pull you in. She's at the stove in her housecoat with the radio turned down low, That's KOSA, a little steel guitar crying away under a man's voice. The sound kept down so it won't carry back and wake your sister. Mama doesn't turn around. She just tells you to sit. There's eggs, and there's a plate in front of you before you've even got the chair pulled out from the table. 2 eggs over easy, a couple strips of bacon, a biscuit you split open in butter while it's still hot enough to sting your fingers, and a cold bottle of Dr. Pepper sweating out of the icebox, because that's what a boy drinks out here, morning or not, and nobody's ever told you different. Your sister Patsy is already up, which is a thing that only happens this one time of the year. 14 years old, and she's got her hair wound up tight in those pink rollers, leaning into the bathroom mirror down the hall, getting an early start on a face that won't be finished for another hour yet. There's a homecoming coming, and a dance behind that, and for Patsy, the whole wide world has narrowed itself down to those 2 things. She's humming. The whole back end of the house smells like Aquanet. You eat. Mama moves between the stove and the counter and the icebox and back the way she always does, like she has done it 10,000 mornings and fully intends to do 10,000 more before she's through. Out the window over the sink, the sky is coming up, gray going over to gold along the flat, the light arriving the way it arrives out here, all at once, with nothing it has to climb over to get to you. You can see clear to the edge of the world from that one window, a windmill turning slow against the dawn, the dark stutter of the pump jacks strung along the far horizon. A pickup going by out on the highway with its headlights still burning, headed out for the patch. It's a school day, Thursday, but it is the 3rd week of October, and the game is tomorrow night, and even now, even here at the breakfast table with your fork in your hand, you can feel it. That low hum running under everything, the whole town already leaning toward Friday. Patsy sweeps through and takes a biscuit clean off your plate and is gone again before you can get a word out about it. Mama tells you to carry a jacket, says the radio's calling for a norther to blow down sometime today, says it'll be cold before you ever get home tonight. You tell her okay. This early, you'd tell her okay to just about anything she said. Then you hear it. Dale's car, the low rumble of those glass-packed mufflers coming up the block, throttling down out front. You grab your jacket off the chair and go. The men in a town like that. Gone before the sun, out to the patch in the dark, and you'd never know it but for a coffee cup, washed and turned over in the rack. A lot of you had a daddy like that, quiet, hard, smelled like the oil field when he came in at night. You didn't have the words for him then, did you? You've got them now. Come on, the town's waking up. The screen door bangs behind you, and the cold takes you full in the face. That first real cold of the year, dry and sharp. The norther already clearing its throat somewhere off to the north. Dale's at the curb in the 57, that Chevy he's been wrenching on all summer long, slouched down over the wheel with a toothpick in his teeth and the radio going. You get in. The seat's cold, straight through your jeans. He drops it down into gear. The glass packs open up with that low burble you feel in your chest, and the 2 of you pull away. Down the long, flat streets with the heater fighting the cold and the radio losing the station and then catching it back. The town slides by, low and wide and brown. The little frame houses all alike, the bare, swept yards, a brick church with its sign out front, the ice house, the Sinclair station with the big green dinosaur up on the sign. And then the houses just quit all at once, and there's the flat. The mesquite, a tumbleweed hung up shaking and straining on a barbed wire fence, the white caliche shoulder of the road running off straight as a rifle shot toward the rim of the sky. The pump jacks are everywhere once you let yourself see them, in the empty lots, out behind the houses, off to the far edge of the world, nodding and nodding and nodding, patient as anything, never in a hurry, never stopping. Dale's talking about the game, about the line, about what the Broncos have got to do to the bunch coming in tomorrow night, about a sophomore he heard tell can really flat run. The radio finds the station again, and it's Roy Orbison, that big, aching voice climbing up out of the dashboard. And Dale reaches over and turns it up without ever once breaking off about football. Because out here in this country, those two things, Orbison and the Friday night game, live in the very same part of a boy's chest. You ride along and watch your town go by. You have seen it every single day of your life, and most mornings you hardly see it at all. The high school sits big and low and brick on its wide asphalt sea of cars, and the lot is already half full and loud by the time Dale wheels in. You feel it the second you push through the front doors. It is Thursday, but tomorrow is the game, and the whole place is wound up tight with the knowing of it. There's a banner strung up over the main hall, "Beat 'em," painted big across an old bedsheet, and twists of crepe paper in the school colors taped along the lockers. And away off down the hall, the pep band runs a few bars of the fight song and then quits. The football boys walk the halls in their jerseys the way they do the day before a game, and there is not one soul in the whole building who does not know their names. The girls are gathered up at the lockers with their heads bent close together over the homecoming mums, those great silk chrysanthemums hung all over with ribbon and little bells and trinkets, hanging down near to the knee, getting bigger every year that passes. Patsy's somewhere in the thick of it. The pep squad's got their sweaters on already, and there's Carolyn down at her locker, throwing her head back to laugh at something one of her girlfriends just said, with that way she has, and you find yourself a reason to take the long way around to your class. The bell, the rooms, the radiator banging and clanking, the same as any other day. Except it isn't any other day. Third period, the coach, who teaches a history class where not one child has ever once learned a lick of history, stands up at the front of the room and doesn't even pretend that he's going to. He just talks about tomorrow night, about heart, about a town that works hard all week long and asks for just this one thing back on a Friday. And these boys are the ones who get to give it to them. And every kid in that room sits up straight and quiet like it's church, because out here, a winning coach is a bigger man than the mayor, and every soul in town knows it. At dinner time, the talk in the cafeteria is all of it and nothing but who's hurt, who's starting, what the other side did to a boy's cousin up in their place last year. You half listen and you watch the clock, because school on a Thursday in the fall is just the thing you have to get yourself through to get to Friday on the far side of it. Nobody got a lick of schoolwork done that week, did they? The whole town humming toward Friday night. Now, us boys, we had the team. The jerseys, the talk, who was starting at tailback. But you ladies, you had your own thing going, didn't you? Those homecoming mums, big as a dinner plate, all that ribbon. Working on your hair 3 days out. That was your week too. You remember it. Come on, the day's not done. The last bell turns the parking lot into a riot of engines and dust and hollering. Dale's already got the Chevy lit and rumbling. You pull out into the long gold afternoon with half the school doing the very same thing. A loose, rumbling parade of Fords and Chevys headed nowhere much in particular, which is the same thing as saying headed for the drive-in, because that's where everybody goes. Tommy's is half a mile on down the road, and you can find it by the smell before you ever lay eyes on the sign. Hot grease and grilled onions and char drifting out over the rows of parked cars. Dale noses the Chevy in under the long steel canopy and cuts the engine, and you sit, because that's the whole art of a drive-in. You do not go inside. You stay right in your car, and you let the world come on out to you. The lot's filling up fast now with the after-school crowd, fender to fender, every radio going. A dozen songs all bleeding into one another. Somebody gunning an engine clear across the lot just for the pure noise of it. Faye comes out with her pad, the car hop who's worked Tommy's so long she car hopped for your big cousins before you. And she leans down in the window and calls you hun and takes the whole order without writing down a single word of it. Burgers, fries, a couple of Dr. Peppers. She brings it back out and hangs the tray on the glass of the window, and you take a burger up off of it, the cold of the bottle and the heat of the grease coming at you in the very same breath. You eat with the door cracked open and one foot hung out on the gravel. Dale's holding court on the game to anybody who'll lean on his fender, and a couple of boys do. The radio's gone back to Orbison, that voice climbing up and up to the place where it just about hurts a person to follow it. And then Carolyn pulls in across the lot, 3 girls deep in somebody's daddy's galaxy, and that current runs through the whole bunch of you at once. Everybody all of a sudden very busy being cool about nothing whatsoever. She lifts 2 fingers up off the door in a little wave that might be meant for Dale, might be meant for you, might be meant for nobody at all. You take a long, slow pull on your Dr. Pepper and you don't let on a thing. Rudy rolls up on the far side in his brother's truck. Your buddy from the south side of the tracks, grin a mile wide on him. And the talk gets louder and the laughing gets easier, and the whole gold afternoon stretches itself out long and slow. The evening still sitting out there ahead of every one of you, untouched, waiting. The light is going long and red by the time Dale runs you back home. The windows rolled up against the real cold now, the heater fighting and mostly losing. Out past the last edge of town, the world opens up, the way it always does. Flat, clear to the rim of the sky. The mesquite gone to black shapes against the going light, and the pump jacks standing dark out there, nodding and nodding. 100 of them, 1,000, far as a boy can see. Off in the middle distance, a gas flare stands straight up out of a tank battery, a torch of orange fire burning steady against the deep bruised purple coming down out of the east. A jackrabbit breaks across the road in the headlights and is gone into the brush. The sour gas rides in faint on the wind, and Dale doesn't notice it, and mostly you don't either. It is just the world. It is just home. Your daddy is still out there somewhere in all of that, you know. Has been since before light. Working a lease under that same sky going down, his big hands black to the wrist, the cold coming on hard now at the end of his day. He'll be home after dark. He always is. Dale pulls up at your curb and you tell him you'll see him tomorrow. See him at the game. And he grins and barks those glass packs once going off down the street, just to hear them roll in the quiet. And then it is quiet. And it's just you and the wind and the jacks creaking away somewhere out past the houses in the gathering dark. That smell. If you grew up in an oil town, you know the one, that sour gas on the wind, and some old-timer telling you it's the smell of money. We didn't think it was a thing at all. It was just the air we breathed. But those men gave their backs to that ground, day and night, in the heat and the cold, so the rest of us could have our Friday nights. I don't believe we ever once said thank you. Anyway, supper time. The house is lit up yellow against the dark when you come up the porch steps, and the smell of supper reaches you before you've even got the door open. Hot grease and black pepper and Mama's chicken fried steak going in the iron skillet. Your daddy's home. He came in while you were out, and he's at the head of the table in a clean shirt with his hair still wet from washing the field off of him, though it never all comes off, not really, not ever. There's a line of the oil worn down into the deep creases of his hands that no soap on this earth will touch, and the smell of the lease is on him still, under the soap, the crude and the diesel and the sour gas, the smell of a day's hard work. He's tired in that deep way, the tired that's down in the bone. He doesn't say much. He never says much. Mama brings it to the table. The chicken fried steak under a flood of white cream gravy, a pot of pinto beans, a plate of biscuits, sliced tomatoes off the last of the garden, and a pitcher of iced tea sweet enough to about stand your hair on end. You eat like you've been pulling pipe yourself all day long. Patsy's still going strong on homecoming, the dress, the mum, who is going with who and who is most certainly and absolutely not. And Mama listens and puts in a quiet word here and there, and your daddy eats slow and lets the whole warm noise of it wash over him at the head of his table. Once, when Patsy says something truly foolish about some boy or other, your daddy looks up off his plate with the very smallest smile a man ever smiled, and then goes right back down to his beans, and that is about the size of all he'll say tonight. He asks you, not looking up from his plate, "Are you going to the game tomorrow night?" Like there was ever any question in it at all. You say, "Yes, sir." He nods, slow. He went to that stadium himself when he was your age, he tells you, about the only thing the man will ever tell you about being young. And for just 1 second you can almost see it, your own daddy, a boy, under those same lights, before the oil patch ever got hold of his hands and made them what they are. Then it's gone, and he's just a tired man again at the end of his day. Chicken fried steak and cream gravy. Tell me there was ever one thing better, after a long day, than your mama setting that down in front of you. She'd been in that hot kitchen since who knows when, and you never gave it a single thought. You just ate. I would give about anything for one more supper at that table, the whole loud bunch of us, the radio going in the kitchen, everybody home and in their chairs. Come on, it's getting on toward dark out there. After supper, you pull your jacket back on and step out the back door, because the house has gone warm and close, and the night is doing something out there that reaches in through the walls and pulls you out into it, and the sky just goes on forever. You forget in the daytime somehow, and then the dark comes down and you remember all over again. Out here, away from the few little lights of the town, the stars come on so thick and so close it is almost more than a person can rightly take. The whole white spilled river of them flung clear across the black, more than you could count in 100 lifetimes, so many that they crowd up hard against one another. There's no moon up yet, just the stars and the cold, and the wind dropped down now to almost nothing with the sun long gone. And out past the back fence, out where the town gives up and the flat takes over for good, the pump jacks are still at it. You hear them more than you see them now, that slow iron creak coming to you across the cold, up and over, the very same as it was this morning before any of the day happened, the very same as it'll be at first light tomorrow. Here and there a gas flare burns away off in the dark, one little point of orange standing all alone out in all that nothing. They never stop. The oil never sleeps. Somewhere out there tonight a night crew is working a rig under these same stars, and your own daddy is already down and asleep in the back room, because his tower starts before the sun, and tomorrow it all starts up again. From the kitchen window behind you, the radio plays on low. Orbison again, or somebody cut from the same lonesome cloth. That high, aching voice drifting out into the yard and getting swallowed up whole in all that space. Patsy's light is on. She's in there with the mum and her dreams of the dance. You stand out in the cold with your hands jammed down in your jacket and your breath smoking white in front of you. And you look up at all those stars and you think on tomorrow night. The lights, the band, the whole town packed in tight under them in the cold, roaring as one. It's coming. You can feel it out there, the same as you can feel the norther coming, somewhere up north of here in the dark, bearing down. After a while, the cold works its way down into you, and you go on back in. The kitchen's warm. Mama's at the sink with her hands down in the water. The radio plays. You tell her good night and she says it back to you without turning around from the window. And you go on to bed and crack the window the way you like it, the cold sliding in over the sill. And the last thing you hear before you go all the way under is the wind picking back up out there in the dark. And far off, faint, underneath everything, the jacks, still working away at the night. You wake to a house gone cold, and you know before you even open your eyes that the norther got here sometime in the night. You can hear it in the way the wind has changed, harder now, with teeth in it, working away at the storm window like it means to get in. The sky, out past the glass, has gone that flat, hard blue-gray it gets behind a front, the kind of cold that has come down to stay a while. And the first thing through your head, before you're even all the way up out of sleep, is good. Cold for the game. Football weather, finally, after all those long weeks of sweating it out in the heat. Because it's Friday, and there is not one single thing in this whole world like a Friday in the fall when you are 16 years old, and the entire town is about to come apart at the seams over a high school football game. Let's go! The town's already wearing it by the time Dale drops you at school. All up and down the main drag, the store windows are soaped up white. Go Broncos! Beat 'em! A score somebody's praying for. A cartoon of the other team's mascot getting whipped good. The drugstore and the hardware and the bank, every last one of them in on it. There's crepe paper twisted onto the radio antennas of half the cars in the lot, snapping and streaming in that hard, cold wind. The team's in their jerseys again, but today it's a different thing altogether. Today, it's the real thing. They walk the halls a little taller and a good deal quieter, like men headed off to something, and the little brothers and sisters look up at them like they hung the moon and every star around it. There's a charge in that building you could have lit a lamp off of. Nobody's even pretending to have school anymore. The teachers gave it up for lost somewhere around noon. There's a pep rally coming last period, the whole school crammed into the gym. And after that, the long, bright, nervous wait until the lights come on out there on the edge of town. You pass Carolyn in the hall and she smiles at you before she remembers she isn't supposed to, and even that little nothing of a thing, feels like it's part of it, part of the whole day, part of the way the whole town is holding its breath toward tonight. You ever live in a town like that? A football town, where Friday wasn't just a day, it was the day. The whole week pointed at it like an arrow. The windows all painted up, the team walking around like princes. And it didn't matter one bit if you never threw a ball in your life. You were part of it. The whole town, one thing for one night. You don't see much of that anymore. Come on, they're calling the pep rally. Last period, the whole school pours into the gym, and the noise of it hits you like a wall the second you come through the doors. 1,000 kids packed up into the bleachers and stomping, and the sound coming back off that hardwood and the high steel ceiling so it's twice as big as it has any right to be. The band's down on the floor and they cut loose into the fight song, and the brass just fills the whole place up to the rafters, the drum line pounding so hard you feel it down in your chest and up through the bleachers into the soles of your feet. The cheerleaders are out front in their sweaters and their pleated skirts, and lined up behind them the pep squad and the drill team in their get-ups, and your sister Patsy is right there in the thick of it, with her hair done and her whole face lit up like a lamp, running the claps and the chants she's been drilling in the front room every single night this week. The mums are everywhere you look now, every girl in the place wearing one pinned up over her heart, those great ribboned chrysanthemums with the streamers hanging clear on down to the knee. They bring the team out, and the place comes plumb unglued. The boys file up onto the floor in their jerseys with their helmets tucked under their arms, looking down hard at their own shoes. And the noise that goes up for them is a physical thing, a wall of sound you could lean on. The coach gets up and says his few words, low and hard, about pride, about Friday nights, about a town that works itself half to death all week, and asks for just this one thing in return. And the gem goes dead silent to hear him, and then roars at the tail end of it, fit to bring the roof down on everybody. They run the cheers, the call and the answer, the whole school giving it right back doubled. And somewhere in there, you're up on your feet hollering with everybody else, your voice already going hoarse. The whole place, one big animal sound. And for those few minutes, there is not one single thing wrong anywhere in the entire world. Then the last bell of the week rings out from somewhere up under all that noise and turns the whole thing loose into the cold, bright afternoon. And the long wait begins. Now, a word for the ladies. Us boys had the pep rally and the game and all the glory that came with it. But you girls had your own Friday, didn't you? The drill team, the pep squad, all those hours on a routine nobody saw you sweat over. That your mama sat up half the night gluing and ribboning, big as a wreath, getting your hair just right out in the cold. That was your night too, every bit as much as it was ours. You remember? Come on. Now there's just the wait, and then the lights. The wait is the worst part and the best part both, and you can't ever decide which. You go on home, and you cannot sit still in your own skin. Your daddy comes in from the lease early for him, and washes up and puts on a clean shirt. Because the whole town goes, every living soul, even the men who've been out on a rig since 5 in the black dark, even your own quiet daddy, who would never in his life say 2 words out loud about a football game. It's about the one thing on this earth that'll get him in out of the patch before he has to come. Mama's pressing something at the board. Patsy's back in front of the mirror, the mum pinned on her now, doing her face over for the 3rd time, the bathroom gone to a pure cloud of aquanet, and Mama calling down the hall for her to come on now. They'll get out there and there won't be a seat left in the whole place. You eat something fast, standing up at the counter. Nobody really sitting down to it. Everybody half into their coats and watching the window go down dark. And it's coming on early now, the dark, the way it does once a norther's blown on through. The sky sliding from that hard blue down to purple, down to black, while you stand there and watch it happen. The cold dropping right along with it. The wind never letting up for a second. Then you're all of you piling into the car. Mama in her good coat, Patsy with a blanket, and that mum, your daddy, quiet at the wheel. And you drive on across the dark town toward the one place every other car in town is headed to. You can see them, the headlights, streaming in from every direction out across the flat, all of them bending toward the same spot on the dark. And then you come up over the little rise, and there it is, the stadium, the lights, up on their tall poles, blazing pure white against the black West Texas night. And you can see them from a mile off, a great island of white light way out there on the dark flat. The whole town pouring toward it on foot and in cars, and your chest goes tight at the sight of it, the very same as it does every single Friday of the fall, the same as it did when you were 6 years old, standing up in the back seat to see. You park in a field of cars and you walk in toward the light with everybody else, the whole town flowing in on foot through the cold, breath smoking, coats pulled up and hats pulled down, and the sound of it all reaches you before you're even through the gate. The band, the crowd, the loudspeaker, all of it pouring up and over the top of the stands and out into the night. And then the smell hits you. popcorn and roasting peanuts and coffee and cigarette smoke and somebody's chili. All of it sharp and close in the cold air. The smell of a Friday night in the fall. The smell of the whole entire thing. You come up through the gate and out into the open, and the field just blazes up green in front of you. Impossibly green. Greener than anything has the first right to be in this brown, flat, dusty town, lined and chalked and watered and perfect under those lights. The whole bright bowl of it ringed clear around by the packed-in stands. And the people. The whole town is here. Every last soul in Odessa is up in these stands tonight, packed hip to hip on the cold aluminum, wrapped in their coats and their blankets and stamping their feet against the cold, their breath rising up off the home side in one big silver cloud into the light. The band's up in the stands in their uniforms blasting away, the brass cutting clean and bright across the cold, the drums pounding up through the metal into the bottoms of your feet. You find your people. Dale's saved you a place, Carolyn's down a couple of rows with her girlfriends, Patsy's off with the pep squad, your folks are up higher with the grown people, and you cram yourself in onto the cold bench in the middle of all that noise and light. Then the band swings into the fight song, and the whole crowd comes up onto its feet at once, all together, because the Broncos are coming out. Pouring out onto that green under the lights, busting clean through the paper banner the pep squad stretched across the end, helmets gleaming. And the roar that goes up off the home side is a thing you feel down in your back teeth. The captains go out to the middle for the toss. The crowd settles, barely, on the edge of itself. The kickoff sails up high into the lights and turns over and over against the black. And the whole night cracks wide open with it. The bodies meeting out there on the green with a sound like a wreck out on the highway. The crowd surging up and falling back with every single play. The band stabbing in sharp and bright after every first down. You are half frozen through, and you do not feel one bit of it. Down the row, a thermos of coffee goes hand to hand to hand. A man's got a transistor radio pressed up to his ear, getting the play-by-play of the very game laid out there in front of his own two eyes. A little kid 2 rows down is dead asleep against his mother through every bit of it, bundled to the nose, used to the noise his whole short life. A boy comes through the stands selling hot roasted peanuts out of a box on a strap, and you buy a sack, and they warm your 2 hands clean through. The cold creeps up through the metal bench and into your legs, and you stamp your feet on the concrete like everybody around you. A man behind you keeps up a long-running argument with the officials that not one of them will ever hear a word of. Way up at the top of the stands, somebody's grandmother rings a cowbell like the world depends on it. And then, late in the half, the Broncos break one loose. A boy gets around the end, and there's a half second where the whole stadium holds its breath as one single body. And he's gone, into the end zone under the lights, and the place comes apart. The roar, the band, the horns and the cowbells. Everybody up on their feet at once, strangers grabbing a hold of strangers. Your own daddy somewhere up behind you with both his hands over his head, and you screaming yourself raw into the cold, bright night. I can still see those lights. Out on the flat in the dark, you could see them from miles off, like the whole town had built itself one bright place to put all of its hope on for a Friday night in the fall. The boys on that field are old men now, or gone on ahead, the band kids, the cheerleaders, that whole crowd in their coats and their blankets. But for a couple of hours under those lights in that cold, every last one of us was exactly where we belonged. There's not much I wouldn't give for one more night of that. Come on, it's not over yet. At halftime, the band takes the field, and the whole town settles back to watch the kids march. The formations sliding one into the next, the high step, the drum major out front with his back arched and his chin up, the majorettes spinning their batons up, flashing into the lights. Your sister Patsy is out there somewhere in the cold doing the thing she has worked at since back in the heat of August. And up in the stands, her mama and her daddy follow her every step without saying one word to each other about it. You go on down under the stands at the half, the concession line, the warm smell of it, a cup of hot chocolate that scalds you right through the paper, a Frito pie handed across in the sack with a plastic fork stuck down in it, chili and cheese poured right down into the bag of corn chips, about the only thing on earth to eat on a cold night like this one. The men stand around in their clusters and talk the game over low and serious, working toothpicks. The little kids run themselves wild through the legs of the crowd. Then the horn calls everybody on back, and the second half, the cold really comes down hard. The kind that gets up into the metal bench and climbs right on up through you. And the other bunch claws their way back into the thing, and the whole stadium goes tight and quiet and worried. Every single play a small war out there under the lights. Carolyn's got her blanket up around her shoulders now. Everybody's breath hangs in a cloud over the stands. And then, late, with the clock running down, and the whole town just about scared to breathe, the Broncos put together a drive, play by play. First down by hard-won first down, the crowd climbing up onto its feet and just staying there. Down the field, under the lights, into the very teeth of the cold, and they punch it on in, and the clock runs out, and the gun goes off, and the whole place comes apart at the seams. The band, the horns, the cowbells, the whole town up and roaring and hugging and pounding each other across the back. The players piling up in a heap on the field, the cheerleaders crying into their mittens, and you're right down in the middle of every bit of it with one arm thrown around Dale and the other around a grown man you never laid eyes on before in your life. The cold, clean, forgotten, the night just about perfect. A Friday night win in a town that lives and dies by them. You pour out of that stadium on a river of people, all lit up with it. And the parking lot is a slow, joyful, honking chaos of engines and headlights. Everybody leaning on the horn for no reason on God's earth but the pure fact of the win. And then you're out on the main drag in Dale's Chevy. And so is the whole rest of the town, cruising Grant Street bumper to bumper, down and back and down again. Horns and glass packs and kids hanging clean out the windows hollering the score across at other cars full of kids hollering it right back. The wind running up and down the long line of cars like a current down a wire. You ride the loop down Grant and back with your arm hung out the cold window, and you know just about every car you pass. There's so-and-so's Ford. There's the carload of girls from the pep squad still in their sweaters. There's a couple of the players themselves cruising along slow like kings with the game still on them. The drugstore's closed and dark, but its front windows still soaped up white with the morning's hopes. And now those hopes have gone and come true, and nobody alive is going to wash that glass for a solid week. You feel about 10 feet tall and bulletproof, the way a boy only ever feels on the one kind of night that can make him feel that way. Young and known and part of something, in a town that for this one night is purely happy clear through. You pull on into Tommy's and it's a pure madhouse, every slot full. Faye and the other car hops running flat out, the radio playing out over the cold and all the racket. You and Dale and Rudy crammed back in the car with the heater going and a sack of burgers, running the drive back, the run, the last stand, telling each other what you all three just watched with your own eyes, like the other fellow might have blinked and missed it. And then Carolyn's there, drifted on over from her girlfriend's car. And she leans down to your window with the cold gone red in her cheeks and that mum still pinned to her coat. And she says, "Wasn't that something?" And you say, "Yeah, it sure was something." And for a minute, it's just the two of you and all that racket. A boy and a girl, and a cold Friday night, and a whole town still ringing with a win. She can't stay long, her daddy's got rules. But before she goes, she holds your eyes 1 second longer than she has to. And that right there is the 1 second you'll drive on home with. Somebody's radio is playing Orbison low under all of it. That high, aching voice, and it's like he wrote the thing for the tail end of a night exactly like this one. That right there, A boy and a girl leaned together over a car window on a cold night, the whole town still ringing with a wind. You had a night like that, didn't you? Both of you did. And it didn't matter a lick what got said, it was the leaning in. That 1 second too long before she went on back to her car. You could know that feeling in the pitch dark, 60 years on. Come on, they're blinking the lights at us, time to head on home. The drive home is a quiet thing after all of that. The town slowly emptying out behind you, the cruising thinning, the horns dying off one and then another and another, until it's just Dale's engine and the heater and the dark. He lets you out at your curb and the quiet comes down complete. The wind, the cold, and up over the top of all of it, that enormous sky. The stars so thick and so close, the very same stars as last night, like the lights and the roar and the whole night were only something you up and dreamed. The house is dark and warm. Your folks beat you home. Your daddy's already down because Saturday's a work day too out on the lease. The oil doesn't know it's the weekend, and his tower starts before light, the same as every other day the Lord sends. Patsy's lamp is still burning down the hall. She's in there coming down off the night. That Mom laid out careful on the dresser to keep as long as it'll keep. And out past the back fence, the pump jacks are still at it in the dark, creaking away to themselves, up and over, up and over. The very same as they were this morning before any of it happened. The same as they'll be at sunup over a town with a wind to chew on all week long. You lie down with the window cracked and the cold sliding in over the sill. Your ears still ringing faint from all that noise, and you run it back behind your eyes. The lights coming up over the rise, the band, the green field, the boy breaking clean loose, the last drive, the win. Carolyn leaned in at your window with the cold on her face. A Friday night in the fall. There will never be enough of them. You don't know that yet. You figure there'll be 1,000 more just exactly like it. You're asleep before the wind even finds the screen. You sleep late, the way you only ever sleep the morning after a win. No alarm, no school bell, no game to get yourself up for. Just the slow, easy swim up out of it sometime in the middle of the morning, the light already full and yellow at the window, the whole house gone quiet around you. For a long minute you just lie there, and the whole night before comes back at you in pieces. The lights up over the rise, the boy breaking loose, the last drive in the cold. Carolyn leaned down in your window with the cold red on her face. And you let yourself have every bit of it one more time before you get up. Saturday, the best morning of the whole week, and the wind still hanging over the whole town like the smell of something good baking in the oven. The kitchen smells like pancakes and coffee by the time you finally drag yourself out of bed. Mama's at the stove flipping flapjacks the size of hubcaps, and there's a plate of them already gone cold that you start in on cold and don't mind one bit. The radio's on, and the man's still talking about the game, reading off the district scores, saying the Broncos' name right out loud over the air. And you and Mama both kind of stop what you're doing a second to hear it. The sound of your own town's win coming back at you out of the radio, official now, set down in the record for good. Patsy's parked in front of the television set in her nightgown with the Saturday cartoons turned up too loud, the rabbit and the coyote going at it, still half lost in the dance and the night before. Your daddy's already been out and back. He ran the lease at first light, gauged his tanks in the cold, and now he's sitting at the table in his work clothes with a cup of coffee and the paper folded over to the sports page, reading about the game in print, like he didn't stand right there in the cold and watch the whole thing with his own eyes. You do your Saturday chores half awake, haul the trash on out to the burn barrel, where the cold ash and the mesquite smoke fold in together with the gas riding on the wind. Help your daddy load a couple of joints of pipe into the bed of the truck. The whole long gold Saturday lies out ahead of you. The Wynn to live in, the picture show tonight, the boys, Carolyn. And then your daddy, dropping the tailgate, tells you to come on and ride on out to the lease with him. He's got to gauge the tanks again this afternoon and grease a jack that's been squalling at him all week. And you go. You always go. A Saturday out on the lease with your daddy is its own kind of day, and you've known it your whole life. The morning after a big win, you remember that feeling? The whole town walking around about 3 inches taller than usual, hearing your own team's name come right out of the radio. A plate of pancakes a mile wide, and not one place in this world you had to be. Saturday morning, when you were a kid, was about the closest thing to free a person ever gets to feel. We didn't know it, of course. You never do. Come on, there's a truck to ride out in. The truck is an old Ford that smells like your daddy himself. Crude and pipe tobacco and hot cracked vinyl. And it rattles and pulls a little to one side. And he drives it with one wrist hung easy over the top of the wheel. The way a man drives a thing he has driven 10,000 hard miles. You head out of town the back way, past the last of the houses, past where the pavement just gives up and quits, and out onto the caliche, that white dirt lease road that throws a long rooster tail of dust up behind you, and runs off dead straight toward the rim of the sky, and the world just opens up. Flat and brown and going on forever in every direction, the mesquite and the greasewood, a windmill off by itself turning slow, a few head of cattle nosing at not much of anything, and the pump jacks, more of them out here than a boy can rightly take in at once, near and far, every way you look, all of them nodding, all of them working, the whole wide earth pumping away under you. The radio plays a country station turned down low, Buck Owens or somebody cut like him, the steel guitar bending down and down. Your daddy doesn't say much, he never does. But it's a whole different kind of quiet out here than the quiet back at the supper table. Out here he's a man square in the middle of where he belongs, and the not talking is an easy thing between you, a companionable thing. The two of you just riding on out across the flat into all that bigness with the dust boiling up gold behind. The truck rattles hard over a cattle guard. A hawk lifts off a leaning fence post and tilts up into the wind and hangs there. You crank the window down an inch, and the cold comes in with the dust and the gas and the dry, cold grass smell of the open country, and you ride. Your daddy slows and swings off onto a 2-track and pulls up alongside a pump jack and a couple of stock tanks and cuts the engine, and the country station dies away with it, and you step on down out into it. And the smell is everything out here. The sour gas, strong now, right up close, sharp enough to sting your eyes if the wind swings around the wrong way. That rotten egg bite of it that means the well's making gas right along with the oil. The smell your daddy has worn down into his very skin across 20 hard years. And under it, the heavier smell of the crude itself, thick and black and tarry, and the cut grease and the hot metal, and the chalk of the caliche dust hanging in the air. And the sound. Up close, a pump jack is a big thing, bigger than it ever once looks from the highway. A great iron seesaw, the walking beam riding up and over on its pivot, the counterweight swinging down heavy as the horse head lifts, the polished rod sliding up slick out of the wellhead and sinking on back down into the dark of the earth, and the whole works of it groaning and creaking and easing with every long, slow stroke, a deep, patient iron rhythm you feel coming up through the ground into the soles of your boots. And here's the thing about out here. Your daddy talks. Not a lot, but more than he ever does anywhere else. He climbs the little ladder up the side of a tank and drops his gauge line on down into it to measure the oil. And he shows you how to read the tape, how to figure what the well made in the night. his big, cracked, black-creased hands sure and even gentle on the cold steel. He names the parts of the jack for you: the horse head, the walking beam, the Samson post. The same way his own daddy maybe named them all out for him once, a long time back, in this same wind. He gets the grease gun and works it down into the squalling fitting until the squalling finally quits, and he grunts, satisfied with it. He lets you turn a valve. He tells you a thing or two about the well, how deep it goes down, how long it's been making, what this whole country looked like when he first came out onto it as a young man with nothing in the world but his own 2 hands. You walk the lease a little ways with him while he looks things over, checks a packing gland that's been weeping, kicks at a length of pipe with the toe of his boot, eyes the high, empty sky out of long habit. The ground out here is stained black all around the wellhead, soaked through with the years of it, and the grass won't grow there and never will again, and a meadowlark sits up on top of the tank battery and sings its whole heart out over all of it, like it doesn't know the first thing about the difference. You pick a wrench up off the ground and hand it to him before he has to ask, and he takes it without a word. And that wordless handing over feels like about the biggest thing you've done all week. Another truck comes bouncing out the 2-track, one of his crew, an old boy named Lupe from the south side of town, your buddy Rudy's daddy. And the 2 men stand together by the tanks and talk it on over low, gauging, figuring. The easy, worn talk of men who've worked shoulder to shoulder a long, long time. You stand off a little ways and listen and feel about 10 feet tall just to be counted out here among them. The wind never quits. The jack never quits. Off in the distance, a flare burns pale and ragged in the daylight. And all around you, clear to every edge of the world, the flat goes on, and the jacks go on, nodding and nodding. And down under your boots, the oil is easing up out of the deep dark, where it has lain since before there were ever men on this earth to want it. And your daddy, and Lupe, and 10,000 more quiet men just like them, give their whole lives to it out here in the heat and the cold and the stink, so the rest of the country can fill up the tank and drive on down to the beach. Your daddy wipes his hands on a rag that does no earthly good at all, and looks out a long minute across his lease, his wells, the work of his one life, with something on his face you can't quite read. Not pride, exactly, but a near cousin of it. And then he says, "Come on, son." And you climb on back up in the truck, and the smell of the lease climbs in right along with you. Down in your clothes and your hair, the smell of money, the smell of your daddy, the smell of home. There were 2 worlds in a town like that, running right alongside each other. All day the men were out on the lease, the oil, the grease, the work, the sun. And all day you women had the home, the kitchen, the wash, the kids, 100 things nobody ever once thought to thank you for. We men knew next to nothing about your day, ladies, and you knew little enough about ours. 2 worlds, 1 town, 1 supper table at the end of it. Come on, let's head on back in. You come back in off the flat, dusty and starved half to death, the lease still riding on you, and your daddy lets you out downtown because you've got the whole rest of the afternoon to yourself. Grant Street on a Saturday is a different animal entirely than it is at night. It's the town doing its honest business, the sidewalks full, the ranch and farm folks come on in from way out in the county, the trucks all angle parked nose to the curb the whole length of the street. The big plate glass windows of Pennies and Dunlaps and Whackers, the courthouse sitting square and solid in the middle of everything, the men coming out of the barber shop rubbing the backs of their necks, the women going in and out of the stores with their arms full of paper packages. You duck on into the Woolworths and slide up onto a stool at the lunch counter. That long counter with the swivel stools and the soda jerk in his little white paper hat, and order yourself a grilled cheese and a cherry Coke he mixes up right there in front of you out of the syrup and the soda water, and you eat it slow at the counter, watching the 5 and dime Saturday crowd go by, the kids hanging over the candy counter pointing, a couple of old men nursing the same cup of coffee they've been nursing for an hour. You even spot Mama out doing the week's shopping with her list held in her hand and her pocketbook hung over her arm, and she stops and presses a dollar bill on you and tells you, "Don't you be late to supper," and goes on down the aisle, and you watch her go, your Mama, doing the very thing she does every Saturday of her life, keeping the whole family fed and clothed and going, and you don't think one single thing in the world of it, because you're 16, and that's just your Mama, and that's just Saturday. Dale swings on by, and you spend the gold middle of the afternoon out at his place, with both your heads up under the hood of the 57, which is Dale's one true religion in this life. He's got it torn down to pieces half the time, and you hand him wrenches and hold the trouble light and learn the engine the way a boy learns an engine, which is by greasing up your own knuckles on it, and the radio plays on the workbench, and the chrome throws the afternoon sun. Rudy comes by, and the three of you stand around the thing drinking Dr. Peppers and talking about not one important thing on God's green earth. The game, girls, cars, the same 3 subjects going around in a circle. The long, easy talk of a Saturday afternoon with nothing in this world pulling at you. Late in the afternoon, you all ride on downtown to the record shop, which is the other church. The little bell over the door, the warm, close smell of cardboard and dust and brand new vinyl, the racks of 45s standing on end in their paper sleeves, the LP bins you flip through front to back with 2 fingers, the posters tacked up on the wall, and the listening booth back in the corner where you can carry a record in and shut the door and play it loud as you want. You're after the new Orbison. You've been hearing it on KOSA all week long, that voice climbing up to where nobody else alive can follow it. And you find it, and you hold the little 45 in your hand. That's it, that's the one. And you've got the change for it off your daddy's dollar and a couple more you'd saved back. There's a knot of girls in there too, flipping through the racks, the way the record shop was about the one place on earth a boy and a girl could just sort of end up standing right next to each other on a Saturday with an honest reason to talk about a song, about a singer, and not have it turn into a whole big thing. You don't see Carolyn, but you think about her. And you buy the record and you carry it home flat and careful so it won't warp on you in the cold. 3 minutes of a song you fully mean to play till the grooves wear clean on down to gray. A record, a little 45 in a paper sleeve. You'd save up for the one song, carry it on home and play it till you wore it plumb out, and then turn it over and play it some more. There was a singer that was yours, wasn't there, when you were young? One voice that found you right where you lived. You can hear it right this minute, can't you, just from me saying it? Funny how a song will hold a whole year of your life down inside of it. Come on, it's getting on toward dark, and there's a picture show tonight. The drive-in's out on the edge of town, the big screen standing up white and tall against the very last of the daylight. The marquee lit up out front, and you ride on out with Dale and Rudy in the Chevy. And this is the thing, the whole entire thing. Carolyn's meeting you there, with a girlfriend along, which is about as close to a date as a boy gets at 16 with a girl whose daddy keeps rules. You pay at the booth by the car full, so you cram them all in, and roll on over the humps and pick yourselves a spot and hook the heavy speaker up onto the window, its little tinny voice crackling on just as the light dies out of the western sky. The snack bar down front rolls its smell of popcorn out across the whole lot. The little kids run themselves ragged on the playground down under the screen before it gets full dark. The cars fill in row by row, the headlights going off one by one. The whole lot easing on down into something dim and close and private. The picture comes up huge against the dark flat. A Western maybe, or one of those rubber monster pictures. It hardly matters one bit which. The speaker crackling its small flat voice into the car, the cold coming down hard outside, the heater ticking and pinging. And Carolyn's in the seat there beside you in the dark, close, the smell of her cutting clean through the popcorn and the cold. And somewhere along in the second feature, your hand and her hand end up on the seat between you, not quite touching. And you watch a whole reel of a movie you will never in all your life remember one single frame of. Every nerve in your arm gone alive to that 1 inch of cold, dark air between her hand and yours. Out the windshield, the stars come on over the top of the screen, and the speaker crackles, and the cold settles in a fog along the glass. And for those couple of hours in the dark, there is not one place in all that flat, dark world you would trade to be. The drive-in picture show. You couldn't tell me what was playing up on that screen if your life hung on it. But you could tell me she was sitting right there beside you. That 1 inch of seat between your hand and hers. You spent the whole second feature working up the nerve, and never did you? Didn't matter a bit. You were 16, and it was dark, and she was close, and that was the whole entire world. Come on, last show's over. Time to roll on home. The drive home from the picture show is just the boys again, the Chevy, the heater, the dark. Everybody gone quiet now, the day all the way spent. Dale lets you out at the curb and pulls on off, and the quiet comes down complete. The wind, the cold, the stars wheeling up there enormous and not caring one way or the other over the flat. The house is dark, your folks long since down, Patsy's light finally out. You stand a minute out in the cold of the yard, with the new record tucked under your arm, and let the whole day settle down over you. The lease at first light, the bite of the gas, your daddy naming out the parts of the jack with those cracked black hands, the Woolworths counter, the engine up under the hood, the record in its sleeve, the dark of the drive-in, and that inch between your hand and Carolyn's. And out past the back fence the jacks are going, the same as always. The same as when you rode on out this morning, the same as they'll be again at first light when your daddy goes back out to them. Because tomorrow's the Sabbath, but the oil keeps no Sabbath. The oil out there never rests at all. You think about your daddy, out there across all the years before you ever even were. A young man with nothing, learning those wells one at a time. You think how you'll likely be out there yourself one day, your own hands going black with it, and the thought somehow doesn't scare you the way you'd figure it might. Not out here, not under all these stars, not on a night like this one. With a good day behind you and the whole long season still up ahead of you. You go on in quiet. You set the record up on the dresser where it'll be the very first thing your eyes land on come morning. You crack the window the way you like it. And the last thing you've got going under is the jacks, faint, far off, working away at the dark, and the wind. And somewhere way down deep in you the small, sure, plain knowledge that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Sunday comes up quiet, the way Sunday always does. You wake slow, and the very first thing you notice is what you don't hear. No rush, no school bell, no Friday charge in the air. Just the wind and the deep quiet, and somewhere already, even this early, the smell of dinner getting its start. Because that's how it goes on a Sunday out here. The dinner gets going before the church does. Your mama's had a roast down in the oven since before you were even up, and the smell of it is already all through the house. And it'll cook low and slow the whole time you're gone, and be waiting there hot when you come back home to it. It's the day of rest, the one day the whole town slows itself down together. Even the oil out past the edge of town seems to pump a little quieter on a Sunday. Though of course it doesn't, not really, not one bit. It only seems that way because everything else has gone so still around it. You get up and you put on the good clothes, and the good clothes are an event in this house. Your daddy's in his one suit, the dark one, the same one he wears to weddings and to funerals and to church, and he is purely miserable inside of it, working one finger around the inside of his collar. A man whose body was built for work clothes and never once made its peace with a necktie. Mama's in her Sunday dress and her good hat with a little bit of net on it, doing the last of the dinner and an apron pulled on over the whole get-up so she won't catch a spot of grease on it. And Patsy's in a dress with her hair done up careful and a pair of white gloves on her hands. 14 years old and trying it all on for size, the young lady she is fixing to become, checking herself over one more time in the hall mirror. The whole family scrubbed and pressed and shining like a brand new dime. Then you all load on into the car and you drive across the quiet morning town to church. And so does every other family you know. The church sits brick and plain on its corner, and the gravel lot fills up with the very same cars that were out at the stadium Friday night. The same people climbing on out of them. Only quieter now, gentler, nodding to one another across the gravel in their Sunday best. You file on in. The pews are hard, and the air inside is close and warm and smells of old varnished wood and worn hymnals and ladies' face powder. The preacher gets up, and the piano starts in, and the whole congregation stands and opens up its hymnals and sings. Not well, exactly, but together. All those plain, flat West Texas voices going up at the one time. The old hymns everybody's known since before they could read a word of them off the page. And there is something down in that sound that gets into a person whether he wants it to or not. The funeral home fans wave slow in the warm, close air. The cardboard kind on a little wooden stick with a picture of the Lord on the one side and the funeral home's name printed on the other. The little kids squirm in the pews and get pinched quiet. The preacher preaches, and you don't catch every word of it, but you catch the whole feeling of the thing. The way the entire town has come on in out of its hard week to sit still together for 1 hour in the one room. And out in the gravel lot afterward, there's the handshaking, the standing around visiting, the women admiring one another's hats. And somewhere clear across town, you know, Rudy's family is coming out of the Catholic Church just the same exact way, the same Sunday, the same town. A little different and just exactly the same. Sunday morning, the whole town scrubbed and pressed and sitting up in the pews. Now, us men, we put on the one suit we owned and were miserable in it the whole blessed hour. But you ladies, you did Sunday up right, didn't you? The dress, the hat, the gloves, the little ones in their good clothes you'd pressed and laid out the night before. You're the ones who got that whole family to the Lord's house looking like something. I see you. Come on, there's dinner waiting on us. And the smell of that dinner meets you right there at the door when you get home. That roast, that's been cooking down low and slow the whole morning you were gone. And now Mama and Patsy go right to work on the rest of it. The apron's back on over the Sunday dresses, and the kitchen fills up with steam and clatter and good smells, all layering one on top of the other. The roast and its dark, rich gravy. A pot of pinto beans that's been on the back of the stove since who knows when. Mashed potatoes whipped up by hand with a spoon. A pan of cornbread turned out hot and steaming from the iron skillet. Sliced tomatoes, sweet pickles, the butter dish, and a tall, sweating pitcher of iced tea sweet enough to about ache your back teeth. And there on the counter, cooling under a clean dish towel, the thing you've been smelling underneath everything else the whole way home. A peach cobbler, the crust gone golden brown and still just bubbling at the edges of the pan. You all sit down to it together, the whole family at the one table. And your daddy says the blessing, short and plain, the same handful of words he says over every Sunday of your life, his head bowed down low and his big black creased hands folded together on the white tablecloth. And then you eat. And it is the meal of the entire week, the one you wait on. You pile your plate up high and clean it off and pile it up again, the roast falling clean apart under the side of your fork, the gravy poured over the whole of it, the cornbread sopping up whatever the fork can't catch. Patsy's going on about the dance again and about the week up ahead, and Mama's listening and putting in her quiet word, and your daddy eats slow and easy with the whole warm noise of his family washing over him, here at his own table, on his one day off in 7, fed and warm and surrounded by every soul on earth he's got. Nobody's in a hurry. There's not one place in the world anybody has to be. The whole long afternoon lies open out ahead. And when the plates are finally cleared away, the cobbler comes out with a scoop of melting vanilla set down on top of it. And you find room for it, the way a boy always somehow finds room for cobbler. And you sit back, full and easy in the warm and the talk, while out past the window the wind works at the bare yard, and the cold leans up against the glass. And then Sunday dinner. The whole family around the one table, the good dishes out, more food than any one bunch could ever put away in a day. And the women, they'd been at it since before the church even let out. The roast, the beans, the cobbler, every bit of it. You just sat on down and ate, and never once gave a single thought to the morning's work behind it. I think on that now, all those Sunday tables full to crowding. Most of those chairs sit empty today, but Lord, they were full once. They were so full. Come on. When the last of the cobbler is gone, and the men have leaned back about as far as the kitchen chairs will allow, the Sunday table breaks itself up the way a Sunday table always does. The women rise and clear it. Mama and Patsy carry the stacked plates over to the sink and roll their sleeves back and run the hot water till it steams, and the kitchen fills up all over again with steam and the clink of the good dishes and the low, easy back and forth of two women working along side by side, a sound about as old as houses are. Your daddy drifts on out to the front porch in his shirt sleeves to let his dinner settle the way a man will, and stands out there at the rail with a toothpick working, and looks down the empty Sunday street and doesn't say one word to a living soul. And you're caught right in the middle of it, the way a boy that age is always caught right in the middle. Too old now to be underfoot in the kitchen, and not yet near old enough for the porch. So you drift back and forth through the warm house between the one and the other, the women's world and the men's, the steam and the cold, the dishwater and the toothpick. And you don't think one single thing of it. You don't think how you get to stand in both worlds just for now, a foot in each. You don't think how one of these Sundays, and it won't be long, you'll have to pick your side of the house and stay on it. You just drift, and the radio plays low, and a dried plate gets set up in the cupboard, and the whole long golden afternoon comes down soft over the house like a quilt laid out over a bed. The afternoon goes slow and golden and does just about nothing at all, which is the whole entire point of a Sunday afternoon. Your daddy settles on down into his chair with the Sunday paper, and inside of about 10 minutes the paper has slid down over his face and he's gone, asleep, snoring soft and easy. A tired man finally taking the one nap the whole long week allows him. There's a ball game on the radio, turned down low, and nobody's really listening to a word of it. The announcer's easy drawl just part of the furniture of the room. Mama's got her feet up at long last. Patsy's stretched out flat on the front room floor with a movie magazine, dreaming her way clear through somebody else's faraway shining life. You drift on in and out of it yourself, out to the porch, into the cold, bright air for a spell, then back into the warm. No plan to any of it. No reason to do one thing more than another. Time barely moves. The light comes slanting in long and yellow across the front room and inches its slow way up the far wall while you sit and watch it climb. A neighbor's dog barks once, far off, and quits. Somewhere down the block, a screen door bangs shut. The whole town is doing the same exact thing you're doing. Napping, drifting, full up to the brim with Sunday dinner, resting itself up for the Monday coming, whether a soul wants it to or not. You wander out to the back step at one point and stand there a while in the cold sun, looking at nothing in particular. The bare swept yard, the clothesline, the fence, the flat running on past it forever and ever. The only sound in all the wide world is the wind, and far off, the slow, patient creak of a pump jack that doesn't know or care that it's the Sabbath. A tumbleweed works itself loose somewhere out there and rolls across a vacant lot and fetches up shuddering against a fence. The cold sun lies warm on your face anyhow, and it comes over you, standing there, the way these things come over a boy and are gone again before he can get a hand on them, that this, right here, the pure nothing of a Sunday afternoon, is about as good as a life is ever going to get to be. You don't have the sense to be grateful for it. Then your mama calls something to you from the kitchen, and the thought turns loose of you, and lifts off like that tumbleweed on the wind, and you go on back inside to the warm, and forget you ever had it. Late in the afternoon, your daddy wakes up from his nap and folds the paper and looks out the window at the last of the good light, and says, to nobody in particular, that it's a fine evening for a drive, and that settles it, the way the smallest word out of your daddy settles a thing. So you all load back into the car, not dressed up now, just easy, Patsy and you in the back, and you go for a Sunday drive, which is its own kind of thing. A thing folks did then just to do it, just to be together and go. Your daddy drives slow and easy with the window cracked, out the edge of town and onto the farm to market road that runs off straight across the flat. And there's no place you're going, that's the whole point. You're just going. The low sun pours in gold across the dash. The pump jacks throw their long shadows clear across the road. Mama's got her arm out the window, riding the wind with her flat hand the way she does, and your daddy points out a thing or two with 2 fingers off the wheel. A lease he worked years back, a place where there used to be a filling station, a spot where he saw the biggest rattler of his life one time. Patsy hums along with the radio. You watch the country roll on by, gold and endless and going to evening, the cattle standing in their long shadows, a windmill turning. The whole wide flat softening down into the close of the day. Nobody says much. Nobody needs to. You drive out a ways and you turn around and you drive on back. And that is the entire thing. And it is enough. It is more than enough. It is about as much as a family ever gets to have. A Sunday drive. No place to go. That was the whole point of it. You just loaded up the car and went, the whole family. The windows down, the radio on. Your daddy'd point out things along the road. Your mama rode the wind with her hand. Nobody said a thing worth remembering, and you remember all of it. We don't do that anymore. Just go, just to be together, going. Come on, there's a little more light left. One more thing I want you to see. Back home, when the supper of cold leftovers is picked over, and the last of the light starts to slant down and go, you do the thing you do on a Sunday evening. You walk on out by yourself to the edge of town, to where the last street finally gives up and the flat takes over, just to watch the day end. Because out here, the sky does a thing it does in no other place on this whole earth. The sun goes down red, not gold, red. blood red and enormous, swelled up huge and sitting right down on the rim of the flat world. And the dust that always hangs in the West Texas air turns it redder still. So the whole western sky catches and burns, lit up like a fire you could warm your two cold hands at from a mile off. And against all that burning sky, black, the pump jacks. Strung out clear across the flat to the very edge of sight, every last one of them nodding, slow, black paper cutouts against the red, up and over, like they are bowing down to the sun going. Like they have been bowing out here since the first morning of the world, and fully mean to keep right on bowing till the last evening of it. As the red bleeds down low and the dark comes climbing up out of the east at your back, the flares begin to show themselves, here and there, and far off across the flat. Little tongues and points of orange fire standing up alone out of the gathering dark, burning steady, the only light left out there now but the dying red of the sun. The wind comes across all those miles of empty flat with the cold riding in hard on it, and you pull your jacket up close around your neck. The first stars prick out overhead in the deep blue going down to black, and the red on the rim goes to rose, and the rose goes to purple, and the purple goes on down to one last thin burning line along the far edge of the world. And then that too is gone, and it's night, full night, and the cold is real now, and the flares burn on out there in the dark, and the jacks bow on, and the stars come out by the thousand and the thousand. And you stand there in the middle of every bit of it, 16 years old, on the edge of your own town, on the edge of a flat that runs on out past anywhere the eye can ever follow. The jacks bowing and the flares burning, and the cold coming down, and the whole enormous sky filling up over your head with stars. And you have the feeling, the one you can't ever quite put a name to and wouldn't try to if you could, that everything right now, this very minute, is just exactly the way it is supposed to be. Your whole life is out ahead of you like that flat out there, wide open, running on and on past anywhere you can see to. You don't know yet how fast it all goes. You don't know that this town, these lights, these people, your daddy's black creased hands, this red burning sky. You don't know that there will come a day when you are an old man who would give back all the rest of it, every bit, just to stand right here one more time, 16 years old, in the cold, watching the pump jacks bow down to the West Texas sundown. You don't know a single bit of that yet, and that, right there, that is the whole mercy of it. You stand out in the wind until the cold finally drives you on in, and then you turn your back on all that dark, and you walk on home to where the lights of the house are burning yellow and warm against the night. The house is warm when you come in, the day's cooking still hanging in the air, the radio playing low. Your folks are settled down into the last of the Sunday evening. Your daddy back in his chair, Mama with her mending in her lap, Patsy gone quiet at last over on the couch. The week up ahead already pulling soft at the edges of the night. Tomorrow is Monday, school. Your daddy out before light. The whole ordinary week starting itself over again from the top. But that's tomorrow. Tonight there's still a little of the weekend left, the very last thin slice of it. And you sit in the warm with your people and let it go on by slow. After a while you say your good nights and you go on up and you lie down in your bed with the window cracked the way you like it, the cold easing in over the sill, and the house ticks and settles around you the way an old house does once the heat has gone out of the day. Down the hall, your daddy's chair gives its one creak. The radio plays on low, and then somebody reaches over and turns it off, and there is just the quiet. The wind leans on the glass, And out past the edge of town, out in the dark where the flat takes over for good, the pump jacks keep on, faint now, far off, working away the way they will work all night long, the way they will work on long after you are grown and gone from this place. Up and over, and the cold comes in soft over the sill, and the dark comes down complete, and the whole of it, all of it, the town, the flat, the red sky, the lights on Friday, your daddy's hands, the boy you are tonight, gathers you up gentle and pulls you down, easy, into sleep. We spent some good days out there, didn't we? I hope you felt it, the cold of those bleachers, the smell of your daddy coming in off the lease, that big red sky going down over the flat. Now maybe you were a boy out under those Friday night lights, or maybe you were a girl with a mum pinned to your coat. Either way, it was your town, it was your fall. Tell me about it down below, where you grew up, what your Friday nights were made of, what you'd give to have just one of them back. And if you're new here, stay with us. There's a whole country left to remember. I'm Henry. I miss those days, the sweet old America.